Sidang Kemuncak ASEAN ke-35 ini merupakan sidang kemuncak kedua buat tuan rumah Thailand selaku pengerusi ASEAN 2019 sebelum menyerahkan baton kepada Vietnam untuk kepengerusian ASEAN 2020. Ada pelbagai perkara dibincangkan oleh pemimpin ASEAN, pemimpin perniagaan dan juga pemimpin-pemimpin negara luar ASEAN, membincangkan pelbagai topik dan isu, dan sudah pasti asas kepada penubuhan ASEAN ini tertumpu kepada kerjasama ekonomi yang lebih mantap dan sebagainya. Dan di bawah ASEAN ini kita ada AEC sebagai contoh, Komuniti Ekonomi ASEAN. Kita ingin melihat bagaimanakah kesannya dan juga perkembangan semasa. Kita bersama dengan orang kuatnya iaitu Timbalan Pengarah Eksekutif ASEAN Bank sendiri, Hong Joki. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, first of all, talking about AEC, the progress that we need to know as of now since 2015.
Well, I think it's commonly recognized that the progress is very slow. Although the level of commitment is very high, but the markets are still very fragmented. There are a lot of high-level commitments which are not really being implemented because all these problems about non-tariff barriers, and it's ultimately ASEAN is still a bloc with 10 different countries. So the honest assessment is that yes, making very, very slow progress, but it is far from what it was first envisioned to be. Single market and production base remains a very a goal that is really, really far down the line.
What are the main challenges, I would say? Is it the political will, or is it the how, in terms of business as well, business community, how are they coping with the AEC, and how are they basically embracing AEC and also enhancing their business to further strengthen ASEAN as a whole?
I think it is a shared optimism, both by the governments and the businesses. We all recognize that ASEAN is a market of 650 million population. It offers such a huge market. And that is something that's both shared by the private sector and the governments. You mentioned a political will. There's one part of the problem, I think, yes. Although the level of commitment is very high, you see that the posture and language is always very positive, but when it cascades down to the operational level, you will see that that's where it gets blocked, because we don't really have a lot of ASEAN-wide framework to pursue any issue or any sectoral liberalization at a regional level. So it all falls back to individual country. So that political will is very, very much needed. But there's also the other part of problem, which is technical. I think we are, after all, a bloc with different levels of development, and therefore some economies or some countries are ahead of others. So when we try to harmonize this standards and so on, it's just hard to do it all at once. So therefore in ASEAN you have something called ASEAN minus X formula. So that itself offers some kind of like you buy some time if you're not ready, but so long as you agree to a certain approach. So I would say that it's both a combination of political will, the lack of it. Although I always say that, one good thing about ASEAN is that when you look at the world, have a lot of protectionist posture. People talk about using tariffs to as a way of counter attack a certain another country. Whereas in ASEAN, you see the language is always very positive, very diplomatic, which in this, during this time is something that we should welcome, and that is a good direction. Now then is the how. I think we all share that what, we all share that, the why also we share. Now is the how. The how is where we lack, we are very much behind. I think the consensus now that we need to build is that can we agree on how do we approach this? If you look at the blueprints, it's beautifully written. We've got great vision, great how to achieve through action plans, but implementation, that's where we sort of stumble. Yeah.
Why does the implementation stumble? And especially if you talk about the political will, and also not just about the tariff, the non-tariff barriers as well, because we want all these countries, to be honest, to be frank, all these countries that have infant industries or industry they would like to protect from liberalization and all that. But where are we right now in terms of non-tariff barrier, in terms of protectionism in the economy and all that?
Yeah, it is a very good question, because non-tariff barriers is like what do you call this? it's a situation where a lot of times you find the private sector, they're pursuing for liberalization, but at the same time they want protectionism. Yeah. It's very conflicting, self-conflicting. So in this, like say one country, they're saying that we need protection in these sectors, but when we go into other markets, we want market access, we want easy access. The same thing happens in that country, and this is where the conflict is. You know, every country has business sectors that sort of lobbying against liberalization so that they are protected. So we're in this kind of conundrum, so to speak, you know, and therefore this is very elusive. So what needs to be done, I think, is to recognize that the ultimate gain, if we really liberalize, we will have net benefit, but we won't be able to see that net benefit right away, because all policy needs time to take effect. If you look at Korea, South Korea, for instance, in '97, they went through the same financial crisis like we did. And if you look at where they are today, they are very developed. They have got international brands, right? Samsung. So what's the difference? It's because they were forced to open up their market. They took up loans from IMF. That subject them to competition. And in the long run, you would say that this is like a short-term pain and long-term gain. So I think what we need to recognize, yes, it's always painful at first, short-term pain, but in the long run we'll become very resilient. And with that kind of acknowledgement, then we have the determination to overcome this non-tariff barriers. At the moment, we fail in both the blueprints, you know, fully to have full eradication or removal of non-tariff barriers is in both blueprints, and we have eliminated 0, and the number has doubled. It was from 4,000 something to now close to 10,000. Now, but that I do not want to I don't want to beat ourselves up, because in other countries they also have, you know, non-tariff measures. The numbers I quoted, they are non-tariff measures. They are not necessarily bad, because a lot of times they are there to safeguard our health and safety, etc. So we just need to look at what are the ones that are probably discretional. Based on, you know, so it's not necessarily bad. We just need to be more transparent and have the determination to say that, you know, when we remove the non-tariff barriers, we actually bring the cost of trade down. We in the end, it translates into cheaper goods and better services for all of us in ASEAN. Yeah, so that's the kind of motivation that we should have. Yeah.
Now, in one of the dialogue sessions by Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, he mentioned about that ASEAN is still not using its full capacity in terms of its population, 650 million population, and if we were to unite together, we could basically counter the trade war, for instance, and also mitigating any bully in that sense from the largest power or largest economy, superpower in the world. But what do you think about this? What are the causes that it seems that integration is not in place? What happened actually?
So I fully support what Tun was saying, that we should really look at our backyard, so to speak. We actually have a combined market of 650 million, but we're not really creating that sort of domestic, quote-unquote, market that we actually have. The reality is, it's 10 different countries. You can't really export and import so easily. You have digital, what do you call this, advancement. You can place an order very quickly. It still comes back to actual goods crossing borders. It will reach another port. You still need custom clearance, and those haven't caught up with technology. So that's the so-called the technical part. But then all these technical parts can be overcome provided you have the determination, the political determination. So I go back to what I said. You really need to recognize the net benefit at the end of the day. Then that motivates you. Everything else will follow. At the moment, I think we all recognize that the market is great, but then I think there's a bit of competition among ourselves. We all want to sell to each other, and then we want to sort of like be the standard or the biggest of something. We should be looking at our comparative advantages. like each country is different. Like Singapore probably better in financial services, and then we probably can, find another comparative advantage. But the thing is, we want to compete in every single segment, and that's where we find competition. And because there's competition, and also, the private sector is lobbying against any liberalization, you're caught in this. There will be winners and losers for sure. But if we say that we are placing the timeline for a longer period of time, we let this competition help us grow as a community, then we will be able to reap that benefit at the end of the day. The thing is, how far are we looking down the road?
Collaboration between ASEAN countries is not just through ASEAN itself, but we are looking beyond that between countries outside ASEAN, the biggest countries, China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, maybe New Zealand, and we have RCEP in place, still in discussion. But it's been 7 years, and a lot of it's been talk of the town. It seems that all these countries cannot reach to the consensus about the RCEP, and it's been 7 years. But how do you see that RCEP should be the biggest trading deal that can help ASEAN to boost its economy in the world arena?
For sure, with 16 countries coming together, with India and China in it, you're going to get like a huge market access. But this is, we used to have ASEAN plus one FTAs anyway, but this is one that tries to harmonize all the FTAs. It no doubt will create a larger market for our exports. It is definitely a good direction. I guess right now I think they're stalled because there are some chapters that they have not agreed on, but I hope that it is coming along. The word that I hear is that it should be, we are nearing the end. So coming back to then how does it help with ASEAN? I would think that definitely partnership in this world of when we hear a lot of protectionism, a lot of all these protectionist measures, it is good that there are countries willing to come together and negotiate. So this is one way to show that our commitment towards multilateralism, towards rules-based trade, and we should greatly support that effort. No matter how difficult it is, we should see it through as one way to tell the world, which is going the other direction, even Brexit and etc. So long as we manage the sentiment well, we have the right policy tools to manage local community well, this is something to pursue. Yeah.
Okay, all the concerns raised by the business community in that sense in ASEAN, are they taking, or these leaders taking the notes of the business community through this ASEAN, in Bangkok? We have twice of ASEAN under Thailand now, and then what would we expect in Hanoi? Will we hear the same problem all over again?
Well, your question is whether how do they respond to our so-called feedback. To be honest, the leaders have always been very cordial. Whatever that we table to them, they're always supportive. Now the problem, or rather the devil is in the details. How do you bring it down, cascading down, and implement it? A lot of times it remains at very high level. It doesn't go to the implementation level. So chances are the same issues will crop up again. But certain things are out of their control, to be fair. Trade war. What can we do? We are not the actors. But there are things that they can control. The medium term, the immediate term is the trade war, which they can't do anything, but at least we should have one voice, like what Tun M was saying.
Okay. Hon Joo-Kee, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Itu tadi Hon Joo-Kee, iaitu timbalan pengarah eksekutif daripada ASEAN Bank. Ada pelbagai isu dibincangkan di ABIS ini sendiri sebenarnya, dan juga di ASEAN Summit, pastinya sidang kemuncak ASEAN ke-35 ini. Pelbagai isu ini, bagaimanakah ia akan dibawa ke peringkat seterusnya, dan bagaimanakah di Hanoi nanti akan berlakunya perbincangan yang berbeza berbanding dengan apa yang kita dengarkan di Thailand ini. Itu semua demi menjayakan hasrat bukan sahaja ASEAN itu, tetapi juga segala dasar yang disusun, digariskan di bawah ASEAN itu. Sekian saja, saya Najar Arif. Assalamualaikum, salam hormat.